In this video, I'm going to talk about some spiling tips. So this is the first piece of planking that I was working on with the boat, and you can see the lines where the planking pieces are going to go. And so this first piece you can see is real wide. Up in here in this front part of the boat, there's such a lot of curve there, so you need real wide pieces if you have any kind of length on these boards. If you had narrower pieces, once you put them on the boat, it wouldn't go very far. You just have a few feet. So I use my real wide ones here in this real curvy part of the boat, and the line that I'm actually going from that bottom edge up to the first line here, which you can't even really see. It starts right in this area and kind of goes kind of like this if you follow my mouse. So that's really the line you're looking for. So spiling, really what that means is so here's that line that I was just kind of showing, and so you just take any kind of a piece of really anything, and I used a pretty long piece here because my board was so wide. And what you do is you go, what I did is about every foot or so, maybe even less than that, you can see I've got a mark over here, and I'm making this next mark here. And so you're just making reference lines above where the actual line is. And so I'll just advance this, and you can see here's my reference mark. And what I did with this is I did a vertical line along the straight edge, and then the actual reference line that now gives me a distance from the real line that I'm going for here. So then what you do is you then put the piece back on the boat and clamp it in some way, and then take that reference piece and put it on there and line it up where it was. And then what you do is you make a mark down here. On this next picture you can see there's my mark. So now that actually marks where the line is, and that's where close to where you need to cut the board. So you do that every 6 inches or every foot or so along the board that you're cutting. And then once you take the board off, then lay it on a surface. And what I did is I used a piece of vinyl like this, kind of flexible, and just line up all those tick marks. And you have to kind of clamp it. I'm not really showing that here, but and then you just draw a line, and that then becomes the line you need to cut. And what I did is you don't want to cut right up to it. You want to give yourself some margin. So here you can see this board, and here's my reference line. And what I did is I cut not quite close to it, and then I used my belt sander to kind of slowly work my way up to it. And you can kind of get a feel for the pieces. These pieces, when they're spiled and put on the boat, they kind of look banana shaped but on the boat they'll be relatively straight. They'll look straight anyway. So that's that's really what spiling is. But again, it's not an exact science, because you want to get, when you spile boards and you spile subsequent rows above, it really takes you work your way into it. It's sort of trial and error, because you're sanding both the top and the bottom for subsequent boards. For this first board, you didn't have to be as precise on the bottom edge, because that's just that bottom edge of the boat, and that can just be sanded off. So there you can see the piece now where I've cut along the edge, and but as you can see, still I've not got it right to the line just yet. You can see where my reference line is, but once you get it close, actually once I started sanding, this actually might be, you can see my tick marks, this actually is, I believe, sanded to be pretty close to lining up. And as you can see, it's a little bit away from my reference mark. And the reason for that is when you lay these on the boat, especially on the bottom side, as you sand the bottom side away, well, it's really more of an issue for subsequent boards. You actually have to work kind of both sides as you go. But in this case, you can see on my reference lines, I started getting close, and once I got close with the sanding, then it doesn't matter that I didn't exactly match my reference line, but because then I was able to adjust the board, because this is a time-consuming process, because you sand off a little here, down here, up here, and you just kind of have to work it until you get it about where you want it. So, and what I'm showing here is just, this is a case where I'm spiling the next board on the boat, and you'll see that here in a minute. And so I have reference mark here, but it's fairly close to the top edge of the board because there's not as much curvature in the hull. So then I just use a piece like this. It's not very wide. And then I made my reference mark down here on the board, and you can see that. So I did that kind of along here. So in this case, again, this is the flatter part of the boat, so you don't need such a tall reference kind of little piece of something like that first board to make marks like this. And then there you can see that second piece. And when you lay this on the boat, actually before it's cut, you don't need as wide of a piece. And this part of the boat, again, you just don't have as much material to take off. So those are some more spiling tips. So hopefully that helps a little bit.